The House Select Committee begins a series of hearings to show the evidence in its investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
John Dickerson is live with us now. John, thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon. What were the headlines for you out of this January 6th hearing that we saw last night?
One was the scope of what the committee has put together with their 1,000 interviews. It really is a story that begins just after the election was called, and the way in which former President Trump made the orienting principle of his presidency for its last 2.5 months to be to overturn the election. And so, in other words, it wasn't just about how much he may have contributed to the violence on January 6th, but all of the things he did in various different parts of his administration, and then also pressure he put on state governors and local officials to overturn the election, and just how much they have, including lots of things we've never heard before, testimony from people who were there talking to President Trump, telling him there was no evidence of widespread fraud, the kind of mountain of evidence that there was no evidence. In other words, that the central claim that led to the violence was a complete fantasy. Those were some of the things that suggest not only the scope of their work, but this is not just hearsay. These are people who participated in the Trump administration and can tell the story of this moment of challenge for American democracy.
New data out today shows inflation has not peaked. Hard to believe. We keep hearing about record-breaking prices. John, what else should we understand about the economic picture?
Well, we're going to talk on Sunday about what we can understand. In other words, we're coming out of a pandemic. There is a war in Ukraine. A lot of things are making it difficult to read what is the current state of the economy. And I would also add we're in a situation where there's been a whole bunch of money pumped into the economy from the federal government, from the president and Congress in 2 different administrations. So it's very hard to get a handle on what's happening in the economy. And if it's hard to figure out what's happening in the economy, how do policymakers, mostly at the Federal Reserve, take actions that are going to actually help the situation? They may very well take actions that hurt the situation. And so I want to get a sense of what we think's happening and how confident we are that we really know what might be going on.
And as we know, Congress is still working to pass new gun restrictions after the spike in recent mass shootings. What do people need to know as those conversations continue?
Mass shootings are just one part of the gun story in America, and there are different solutions to different sets of the story. But we're going to talk to some researchers who started something called the Violence Project, which is an analysis of all the mass shootings since 1966. And by looking at all the contributing factors of the many, sadly, shootings that have taken place, these researchers have come up with a set of characteristics that explain or give a sense of where these shootings come from. For example, they're mostly young men around age 18. So if that's the case, if they have a set data that tells them this is the kind of person likely to do this kind of shooting, what does that mean in terms of policies that should be put in place on gun safety, school safety, mental health? Even the way we talk about these kinds of shootings in the press matters in terms of the effect it has on them, on these shooters who perpetrate these massacres. So I want to try and get as many facts as possible while we're in this position where people are trying to figure out what policies can address these challenges.
All right, you'll cover a lot of ground on this Sunday. John, it is great to have you with us this afternoon.
And of course, you can catch Face the Nation every Sunday at 9:30 here on CBS.